Hey traders, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Australian currency pairs and kind of a rare situation that might present some really good trading ideas going into the rest of 2020, but also into 2021. So stay tuned, let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nick. I talk all about trading and investing, and today we're going to be talking about the Australian dollar and some interesting trade ideas that I have a little bit longer term. Now, if you watch my weekly trade ideas section that I do on YouTube, I don't usually go longer term. So sometimes I like to make videos that are a little bit extra, kind of big picture. And today we're going to be talking about the Australian dollar. And I'm going to talk about some interesting things to start here. This is the community outlook on myfxbook.com. It's a free tool you can go get on you go to community and then you go to Outlook, again, myfxbook.com. Now, if we scroll down here, check this out. This is really interesting to me. Now, this is telling us the retail sentiment of any particular currency pair. And what that means is that everybody on the site, this is what they're thinking. Now, no offense to the nice ladies and gentlemen on myfxbook.com, but they are still retail traders. And a lot of times what that means is that they have kind of that retail approach. What do they think is going to go up? What do they think is going to go down? And for me, a lot of times I want to be on the other side of that camp. That's not being evil. That's not being mean. It's just knowing that most of the time, you know, the average trader does not do well, and most of the time, you know, big traders, the bank traders, the smart money, they do better, right? So they're usually probably on the other side of these trades. Not always, but again, that's a general idea that I like to look into is, you know, what is the average crowd, you know, participant doing in the markets so that I can kind of meander myself away from the rest of that crowd. Now let's hone in here on the Australian currencies. You can see a couple of them right here. So basically, we've got Australian Canadian, we've got Aussie Yen, AUD NZD, and AUD USD. Now, I'm going to forget AUD NZD here just because these two markets are very much correlated, right? You have the New Zealand dollar and the Australian dollar. They move a lot in tandem just because of where they are in the world. They do a lot of the same business, and they do a lot of business with China, right? You have a lot of their economy structured the same way. So I'm going to be looking more at the Australian dollar compared to other markets such as the yen, such as the Canadian dollar and the US dollar. Now, what we'll notice here is that we have a lot of red bars here. Now, what does that red bar mean? Well, if we actually clear this and hover over this for a moment, check this out. We're taking a look at the Australian Canadian, and what this is telling us is that according to the site, the Aussie Canadian action on this particular instrument at this time is 83% short by retail investors and 17% long by retail investors. We can go ahead and continue that train right there and take a look at Aussie Yen here. We've got a 68% short rating on this currency pair and a 32% long. Again, we're going to skip over Aussie New Zealand and take a look at Aussie dollar. 72% short here, 28% long. So what does that tell us about what retail traders are up to on these three major currency pairs? Well, or not major currency pairs, but Australian dollar currency pairs. What that tells us is that they're very, very short on these pairs. Well, we can jump back over to the charts and take a look and see what these pairs are actually up to, and it gives us an interesting idea. Let's take a look for starters at Australian dollar versus Canadian dollar, and what we'll notice here is that we're in a strong uptrend. We are actually above the 200-day moving average. We are, you know, steadily chugging along, and you'll notice that more recently we've had a nice little run up to the upside. So a lot of retail traders right now are short on this currency pair. Now you might be asking yourself, well, why are they short? And generally speaking, a lot of times from my experience, this is just, you know, anecdotal kind of my experience, a lot of times traders want to call the tops and they want to call the bottoms when it comes to markets. They want to say, hey, this market's too high, or hey, this market is too low, and they try and call when it's going to reverse, right? And sometimes that can work. So I'm not saying that that can't ever work, but a lot of times retail traders obsess over, hey, it's gone up, it's got to come down now, I'm going to short this thing, and it just keeps going up. Well, that is the rare situation that we have right now, where we see retail is heavily invested on the short side on these currency pairs. And that to me offers an idea of actually looking to be long against that crowd. So again, if the crowd thinks it's going to go down, can it go down? It certainly could. I'm not going to say it can't go down from here. But more importantly, I'm going to say that most of the crowd thinks it's going down, so I don't want to be with that crowd. I don't want to bet on the same side as them for the most part, because a lot of times they're wrong. So how do I play this? How do I look for opportunities in that sort of situation? Well, this is where the rest of our technical analysis comes in. So what we just did was sentiment analysis. We went and we looked at what the average investor is doing so that we can get an idea and actually look for, what's the crowd doing and how can I play that? So when we have the crowd doing one thing, I'm looking for the opposite opportunities that are out there. For me, what that means is looking for significant moves above resistance, looking for breakouts, looking for technical reasons to get involved, using that sentiment first, then that technical analysis to carry my trade. So that is a lot of times how I am entering my trade. So how can we actually use that to our advantage? Well, now we know that the crowd is short, right? That means to me that if we start to see a break to the upside, I love the idea of looking to get long on pairs like Aussie Canadian, Aussie Yen, and Australian dollar. Again, we can zoom out just a little bit here, adjust this, and look for, again, this is what I'd be looking for. I'd be looking for opportunities to get long on some sort of break and retest setup. So if we were to set up a trade here, for example, if we saw a convicted move above the previous high, again, this trend could just continue to go higher. A lot of times retail traders are going to say, oh, it's too high, it's got to come down now. But to me, I don't say that. I look for opportunities like this to say, hey, it's probably going to keep going. It doesn't have to, but trends can be very, very powerful and last a lot longer than people think they do. Take a look at this trend here on Aussie Canadian. When we were in a downtrend, we went from like May of 2017 all the way to April of 2020 for the most part on a steady downtrend. So it's very possible that this uptrend could be set to continue. And so for me, again, that looks like looking for opportunities of a breakout to the high side. So this is Australian Canadian, but we can actually do the same concept. We can take a look at Aussie Yen and see if there's anything setting up here. Here's our high points, right? We actually have a couple interesting levels of resistance here. We've got this level that we are currently at, and we've also got the previous high. So these two levels to me look like opportunities to get long if we were to break out. Now you can see we had a little bit of a rejection point here. So if we were able to break through that level, that to me is an interesting buy opportunity. So again, similar to our previous, we can say if we get something like this, this could be setups to look to go long, at least in my my analysis, right? So if price were to break through some of these levels and retest them, I'd look to continue those trends, to continue going against that crowd, because again, we go back to this, they're very, very heavily short here. So knowing that they're short and looking for long opportunities to go against the retail crowd is something that I like to do. It's not necessarily wrong or evil. This is just this is the market, right? It's all fair, fair game to go for the best opportunities that you can find. So that is what I'm looking for on Aussie Yen and Aussie Canadian. Let's take one more look at the last one that we looked at was AUDUSD. Now, AUDUSD is actually one of my favorites here because the US dollar has been very weak with the Fed printing a lot of money. We've got that, that stimulus stuff coming out, right? And that's causing a lot of the US dollar to be printed, which could cause a lot of, devaluing of the US dollar. So with that said, would that mean potential moves higher on the Australian dollar? It's very possible. I'm not going to predict that that's going to happen and say, oh, I knew it was going to happen. I'm not going to say that, but rather what I'm going to say is if it starts to show signs of that, I think there's some decent risk reward, especially considering that most retail traders are short on this pair. So if we were to break through on this trade, again, a very similar setup. Break, retest, and looking for a continuation of this overall trend. So that is how I would play these markets. Again, just as an example, if we were to break through, putting stops somewhere underneath structure and looking for a continued move there, that is probably how I would play these markets. Now, in case you are not already a member of our community, check out the link down below in the description. If you want to trade alongside myself and the rest of our community, you can check it out there and get access to any trades that I actually take, as well as our chat rooms and other perks and things. You can check it out there for yourselves. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. We'll see you back in the next video.